Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News website. Got a great guest in Kelly Malcolm today. He is the VP Exploration for Amex Exploration. Amex has a tremendous high-grade gold discovery with satellite discoveries, and I think a very modest valuation. And I think that this one will be a takeover target in the near term. So I wanted to get Kelly on. Kelly, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure as always, Allan.
So what I wanted to talk about today was the excellent results. I mean, I'm always talking about continuity in high-grade discoveries, and just look at their list here. Western Shallow High-Grade Zone. One hole hit 78 grams of gold over 5.9 meters, 43 grams of gold over 6.8 meters, 21 grams of gold over 5.56 meters, 123 grams over a half a meter, 5.65 grams over 9.95 meters. And then their eastern deeper zone that extends all the way down to 980 meters and with great continuity, 35 grams over 6.75 meters, 16 grams over 9.1 meters, 13.54 grams over 10 meters, 16.18 grams over 6.8 meters, 14 grams over 5 meters, 29.8 grams over 2 meters. That 13.54 grammer was at 980 meters of vertical depth. Another one, that 35.89 meters at 6.75 meters at 940 meters of vertical depth. Just an ongoing continuity of high grade. And Kelly, you have a great map there that really shows the continuity. So why don't you bring that up and let's get started on these great results.
Sure. And then the other thing I'd like to chat about too, Allan, is the financing that we are in the middle of completing as well, because it was very sizable, very non-dilutive, and I think will be a significant benefit to shareholders.
Yeah, so that's a $43 million financing that started out at 33 or 30 some million and is now up to 43 million. So that'll give you tons of cash to continue the drilling. So why don't you tell a little bit about the results and these maps you have now? Sure.
So the map on the right was the map that was published in Tuesday's press release. The map on the left was the last time that we published results from the high-grade zone. There's obvious differences here. The main one being that you can see a whole lot more contouring, enlarging of these zones around this core that was present last time. Also, we started finally contouring and coloring the depth extent on the eastern high-grade zone.
Just to put it into context, Kelly, that greenish color is a 10 to 50 gram a shell, and inside that is a over 50 gram shell. When I first started getting excited about this project, I thought there would be continuity at depth because of what we were seeing in those shallower holes. And it sure has paid off on both sides of the diabase dike.
Absolutely. And what you can also see is even if you look at the upper portion of figure 3, there's a large portion of it that is on the left anyways, that is green. The red, this over 50 metal factor portion doesn't seem to carry downwards. However, in the new image that we reported on Tuesday, you can see that the pink is starting to infill now that we're starting to test in that area. We're adding more high-grade ounces to the system, and we're clearly demonstrating that here. One of the reasons that we were able to add all this strike extent is you can see that we already had some of these lighter green images on the earlier long section. We thought they were kind of sporadic hits, but we've been doing a lot of drilling on the Denise zone, which sits just to the south of this. So we've been drilling through the upper portion of the high-grade zone quite often. And we've noted now that the system is actually very continuous across. It's obviously lower grade in that dark green portion, but we are seeing continuity of gold, and we expect that we'll be able to expand the higher grade portion on the right-hand portion of that map as well. And then at depth, you can see that this thing's really starting to take shape. I would argue it's even more continuous in the depth extent than it is in the near surface portion.
Yeah, it's getting wider and big higher grades, but I think that people should be aware, Kelly, that all that green, that light green and the red, that is what makes underground mines work. You know, anything over 10 grams.
Sort of, yeah. So you want 4 grams, 4 meters, 3 grams, 4 meters, something in that realm would be a classic Abitibi Red Lake underground mine. That's the usual sort of standard of what makes it and what doesn't. We're delivering 30, 40, 50 times that on a regular basis. But like you said, the light green color is also not to be discounted. That is very much mineable and profitable underground material, especially as you approach the 50 metal factor level, where you're sort of looking at a 5 grams over 10 meters or 10 grams over 5 meters, which is that's a big moneymaker in any underground mine around the world.
So, you know, that's I think very important for people to realize. And you know, look at how things are developing on the left-hand side of that diabase dike with that 50 plus metal factor. That is incredible continuity for a high grade.
Absolutely. And what's also really exciting is on the left-hand side of that diabase dike again, where my mouse is, it's really truly wide open. And as we can see on the upper western portion, there is gold mineralization. We thought it was basically sterile on the right-hand side of this main lens. We're proving that wrong. So there's a whole lot of exploration and expansion to do on the left-hand side of this depth extent. You can see up in the upper right portion of the map, E2 gold zone is on the same longitudinal, only about 150 meters away. We're doing a ton of drilling there. We're really excited about it. So there's the reason that one was so exciting, the E2, I don't think we even talked about it after we published it, Allan, but that one is really exciting for the fact that the geology looks like this. Let me see if I can draw.
Kelly, does it look, that's just what I was going to ask you. Does it look like that is a parallel zone, or does it look like it has?
That's kind of the dream, Allan. So the geology is identical. The structural nature is identical. The lineations, all of the fancy structural measurements are very similar. We just don't yet know about continuity. We don't yet know about size. We don't yet know about whether it's a deposit or just a few hits. But because it sits exactly on the same plane, shares similar characteristics, shares the same mineralogy, shares the same host rock, I've got quite a good feeling about that one. So I would say for me, that's one of my top targets to increase market cap and valuation of Amex.
Well, and another thing,
if you have two zones parallel, it's the same underground development that gets utilized, and you end up massively increasing the economics of that underground system.
How far are those apart, Kelly?
These are 25-meter boxes, so you're about 150 meters or so. So it's underground, that's nothing. It's a little drift over and long hole stope above, and it's very, very simple. So that's one of the reasons that we are so excited about it and have been ever since that first hit.
And it's still open that these could connect at depth because they're so close.
Yeah, I honestly, as we keep doing exploration in between those two, we may see that it's more of a sort of panel of mineralization with these shoots present within, and there could be gold mineralization all the way across there. You can see there's no drill holes really in between, aside from a few that didn't really hit much, but 3 holes to test, I don't know how many square meters that is, but I can tell you it's a lot. Doesn't give you a full picture at all. So lots of room to test there. And really that's one of the goals of 2022, and that's really our corporate mantra for this year, is expansion and exploration. So we're really focusing on adding to the system. For the most part, as you can see here, the high grade zone is largely resource ready. It's pretty well drilled off. Now it's time to start growing these things along strike. We're doing a lot of work on Denise as well, Allan. That is quite exciting for me. It's really wide open for expansion, and through these winter months, we've been hitting that pretty hard. So we've got 2 or 3 drills operating on Denise at the moment. We've got 1 drill going on E2 gold zone steady as well, because both of those areas, the extension of Denise and the E2, are a little bit swampy. So while the winter months are here, we're taking advantage of them and really aggressively targeting those areas in particular. But that's really the goal of this year, is to add tons, add ounces, and expand and grow, as well as, of course, doing our regional exploration that has been quite beneficial so far.
Kelly, do you have a map that shows where Denise is in relation to E2 and the western and the high grade zone? Because that's important as well. If Denise is an open pit and it looks like it's got some very sweet grades, that would kind of give you an underground head start to attacking the high grade zone.
Absolutely. So I'll zoom in on a map of just the eastern sort of area. So we have our high grade zone here. I can draw, unless, can you see that, Allan, well, or would you like me to draw?
Yeah, no, I can see it perfectly. So the red, that red is where you've got the Denise zone.
The big red is where we've got Denise, yes. And the whole area that we're excited about, really the area that's exciting me is this whole eastern area. We have sporadic gold hits along this whole killer. Really has been tested. You can see there's rarely a drill hole coming across here, and a lot of these ones that you're seeing are actually very deep holes. So these, for example, this portion here, these are all depth extension drill holes that are testing basically that contact at, I don't know, 600, 700, 800 meters depth. So there's really no near surface drilling like was done over in this portion here, which is really what's going to define the Denise zone. All these short, shallow holes are really what define that near surface mineralization. We've hit gold in, like this is a color, hit gold in this hole, this hole. I believe one of these 2 have hit gold mineralization. So we know that there is gold trending across that area. It's just never work to define it. So we're hitting that very hard this year. Let me clear all these.
Before we go into more, Kelly, and keep that map up there, because a thing that I notice also is that, you know, those holes that you've drilled off are out there. They likely go underneath any mineralization that Denise would be looking at. But what excites me is that your Normatel fault and your Normatel South Perron fault seems to be getting very close together, and that's where, you know, you can have really good rock preparation for gold mineralization.
Absolutely, and there's been no drilling over there as well. We've just sort of been inching our way over towards it. Like we made the E2 gold zone discovery, which is on trending in that direction, and also it's right beside the high grade zone, as you can see, on the same geological structure. High grade zone, E2 gold zone, basically trending up on virtually the exact same fault. And then we recently announced this E3 zone, which has had some nice near surface low grade gold. Like you said, we are going to keep working our way eastward, especially in the summer because this is quite a dry area. So we'll be able to hit that pretty hard come summertime. Also close by, we have our VMS zone that we call QF. Look how close that is to all the gold mineralization. This is a 200-meter scale bar. So you're only sitting a few hundred meters away from all of our high-grade gold. It's really, really shaping up to be quite an interesting and very, very well endowed gold project.
Yeah, well, gold and now VMS as well, which are coming up on the other side, the northern side of that Normantel fault.
Which is really neat. And that's where we should find them, because that's where hold on, let me clear this. I'll show you one more map. Actually, before we leave this one, Alan, I just want to show you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you one more question about that map, Kelly.
Okay.
It looks like the high grade zone, the E2 gold zone are on the same direction, but then the upper high grade zone seems to be pointing towards a connection of those two trends.
You good. That's 100% correct. So what's happening there, it's sort of classical structural geology called Rydell shear zones or Rydell shear zones, where you get these sort of conjugate faults happening. This is a secondary fault or third order fault, as is this one. And what's kind of funny and really interesting is so let's say you draw up like this, there's the first one, here's the second one, and then we have I'll keep that going up, and then you have the 210 structure coming across, basically on the same parallel. So it really opens up a new orientation of mineralization for us, which is that other angle that you're looking at for the upper high grade zone to test elsewhere on the block and elsewhere on the property. Now we're looking not only for these northeast structures, but also these northwest structures that are coming in at that sort of 30-degree angle.
And as you're moving your hands around there, Kelly, it reminds me of some of these other orogenic gold systems where you have this, multiple faulting of secondary structures that are, perfect conduits for the gold fluids that are making their way up. And, it certainly looks like you've got a deep plumbing system there that goes on for a long time, and then it's pumping the fluids up into these secondary structures.
Absolutely. And then really this is really classical geology or classical structural geology, classic mineralogy, classic quartz veining, classic orogenic gold. The only unique part is the host rock. And really in the Abitibi, there aren't very many rhyolite hosted gold projects and gold deposits. If this were not a rhyolite package, this probably would have been explored and discovered quite some time ago. If it was in volcanic greenstone rocks, it would have been drilled a whole lot more than it was, whereas most people typically explore only for VMS mineralization in rhyolite packages.
Well, Kelly, sometimes in geology, you got to look at things from a different set of eyes. I mean, I spent a lot of my career in diamond exploration, and when those volcanogenic systems are making their way to the surface, they don't really care what package of rock they're making their way into, as long as it allows those fluids to make their way up. And that's what you've exhibited here with the with the truth machine, that you have an orogenic system, and it's the plumbing that has tremendous continuity. I keep getting back to that continuity. I learned a long time ago, Kelly, that you don't want sporadic gold mineralization in high grade. They don't make mines. Continuity. They say that grade is king. I think they get that wrong. Grade is queen. Continuity is king.
I would agree with you on that. It's really important for underground mining. There's a number of examples where mines have either failed or had a really hard time once people get underground and start trying to exploit the mineralization and just realize that it's either not exactly as perceived in terms of structure, or veins are folded, or grade is really spotty and very impossible to control. Whereas this, like based on the drilling to date, I don't foresee that ever being an issue at Peril.
Yeah, I watched the evolution of Rubicon, and that was one that had tremendous high grade. I mean, it was very exciting on the grade side of things, but the distribution of the gold was too random. And there was two problems with that. Trying to mine that's very difficult, but trying to predict where to drill is tremendously difficult. And as you can see from the gold distribution that Kelly provided earlier, the predictability here is quite tremendous. So that speaks highly to the continuity.
Absolutely. And then I'll show you one more on this.
Okay. So the QF, that's the VMS target, right?
Yeah, but you're jumping the gun. So before we leave this image, I just wanted to show the end orientation of it, like I had drawn before, with respect to the high grade zone. You'll love this. Something really interesting about it is the first really good hit on the E2 zone occurs at the exact same vertical level as the first good hit on the high grade zone, flanked by this, let me change the color, flanked by this lower grade green, as is the high grade zone.
Ah, beautiful.
Around the, so this is just very arm wavy, but I think it was so cool when we started putting this all onto a comparative section. And then surrounded, as is the bonanza area, by our green stuff. So we don't yet fully know the mineralization, but we are doing a lot of drilling, basically stepping out laterally here, trying to find that sweet spot as we could over here, and looking for a potential bonanza shoot. So I always think this is a really cool thing to draw, because you can see that they're shaping up to be almost identical, but
well,
that remains to be seen, of course.
It's certainly not lost on me, Kelly, because when I first started following you guys, you were a 50-cent stock and you had just started to announce your first couple of drill holes. But what I saw in that was the potential for continuity at depth. And what you just drew there really excites me, Kelly, because it's like the early days of the high grade zone.
Mm-hmm. That's how it feels, but obviously we need a whole lot more drill holes to validate that. But I certainly think that it's a really neat theory, and we're as a company really excited about the prospect of that. And then if you get one, guess what? Keep drilling further along strike, and chances are there's probably another one somewhere too, right?
Yeah, well, that's a tremendous combination that you have there between Denise being a potential open pit that will lead you down towards and closer to the high grade. And you know, in a scheduling of a mine, that's probably the way it would come out, is you start with Denise, and then, you know, when you get down to the bottom of that, you start drifting over to the high grade stuff and really start making some serious money.
Yeah, that's how we're sort of envisioning it as well. I'm in the same boat, so we'll see how that all plays out once the engineers start doing their thing. But I think that makes common sense to me. And then I'll show you one more. This is the our VMS slide, Allan. So
yeah, because I was going to say, Kelly, your timing is perfect, because what I was going to say is that I think that you could make a strong story that the company is undervalued just based on the gold. But now you brought this VMS stuff into the picture, and you know, copper is very under demand and undersupplied, under strong demand and undersupplied. And when you start looking at 2.15% copper, things start getting pretty exciting, and that's what they were mining at Normatel.
That's right. So that was pretty reasonably sized mine, however, quite high grade. 10 million tons, went from surface all the way down to over 2 kilometers. Moneymaker built the town of Normantel that we operate out of. But what's really, and you called it before, you're like, wow, it's interesting that the VMS sits to the north of that Normantel fault, whereas all the gold is to the south. All of the gold that we're finding to date sits in this peach-colored wedge within our property bounds in black.
So that peach,
so really,
that peach falls
peach is the
between the
Beaupré
Perron
rhyolite
fault and the Patton fault, or the
Exactly.
Normantel fault.
The Normantel fault. So Patton sits above. Patton comes all the way from Ontario. I'll draw Patton for you.
So the
Patton comes from
Normantel,
Ontario, and then up like this, and then sort of disappears into nothing. Normantel is really one of the bigger faults here, and it really marks that blue sequence. And the blue sequence is really important for VMS mineralization. So Normantel goes something like that, and then Perron, which is where we're finding our gold, comes in as sort of a splay off of the Normantel fault, and then potentially, you can see we have question marks drawn here, potentially comes, trends over to Ontario, but we don't really know.
well,
So
what I
that's
find
the main structural premise.
what I find about those two sets of rock packages, the Perron fault and the Normantel fault, is that where it gets up into where you guys have hit, it pinches in quite nicely, and that can be another, rock preparation area, and it's no wonder you're finding VMS there.
Fully agree with you. Well, the VMS mineralization, so when you look at this, you can see that Normantel here, Normat Mar, which is what the neighboring company Star Peak is currently drilling with some really nice numbers, both sit in this blue, it's called the Normantel Mine Horizon. So it's a tough, it's a Celtic, well-prepared VMS unit, and that's exactly where we hit our VMS mineralization.
But it's in a more wider area of that blue package. When you get that squeezing in there, that's where the rocks all get broken up and well prepared to bring up a VMS deposit. Yeah,
you need the rock preparation for VMS. I totally agree with that, and there certainly is lots of a whole lot of faulting happening in this area. You can see on the map here, faults coming all the way across. All these really funky folds within this big rhyolite package. So in rhyolite, you don't really fold; you kind of crack and break, just like you said. So lots of well-prepared rocks for the VMS discovery that we made, the QF zone, as well as potentially a few more. We've got some nice targets that we'll be testing through 2022 as well.
That's an important point because VMS deposits are found in clusters. And so far there's 2 of them, and now looks like a third. And so you're wide open to find more in that right kind of rock package.
Absolutely.
So that's some pretty fertile geological processes going on deep there, because you've got the pumping of both orogenic gold system and then also a conduit for VMS.
Yeah, you got to hand it to Jacques Trottier, the chairman. He's always been convinced there's quite a lot of significant mineralization here. And even when Victor got involved in 2016, he started walking around the street and asking like his colleagues what they thought about the project. Like, I don't know, it's okay for VMS. There's probably no gold there. It's not the right rock. And Jacques was adamant that there was something significant. So kudos to him, and I guess kudos to Victor for financing a gold project that no one thought had any gold. But it's just interesting to see how these things develop, and we're really excited for the future.
I'm glad you brought up Jacques because we had a conversation a number of months ago, and it was really an eye-opener for me because Jacques talked about the difference between the gold mineralization in different kinds of orogenic systems. And he made the case of why there is such tremendous continuity here that is different than what, for example, you're seeing out in Newfoundland. And that difference also plays a role in getting the gold out of the rock. Can you talk to a little bit about that conversation we had, Kelly? Because it was a real eye opener for me, but it might be a little bit above my pay grade.
Honestly, I don't really recall exactly what he was mentioning, so I think we'll wait for Jacques to come back on, but he'll probably jump on with you.
He was talking about how why there is such high grade continuity, and that where it's contained in the rock compared to these thin little pieces of high grade.
Oh yeah, no problem at all. So yeah, we published a paper essentially on this.
That's right.
The idea here is that the gold mineralization seemingly is primary mineralization, so that means that typically when you have a gold deposit, you get a big low grade system. That's kind of the first pulse of gold, and then nearby or within, you're going to get high grade shoots in that lower grade system or just away from it. Oftentimes, that secondary gold enrichment, basically you have fluids coming through that gold deposit, scavenging some of the gold away, and then placing it sort of wherever that fluid travels, and there's either a chemical trap or a structural trap for deposition of that gold mineralization. In the case of the high grade zone in particular, the continuity that you identified and a number of other geochemical signatures, including a bunch of isotope work, a bunch of microscope work, indicates that this is truly a primary system. So this was a very rich carbon-based fluid, or so it seems, that was carrying a very high concentration of gold, that deposited it in a first order manner, which is different from a lot of other areas that have high grade gold, because typically you get a big broad system and then you get pods, and you look at a long section and there's pods of high grade, pods of high grade, pods of high grade, pods of high grade, and typically that's the result of secondary enrichment of that gold system. So that's more challenging to mine than a single sheet of high grade gold.
Yeah, because you can see that in the core. If you look at like some of these projects out in Newfoundland, yes, they have VG, but it's in tiny little pieces. And that adds up to very high grade, but yours is more concentrated of the high grade visible gold.
Yeah, it's a different style. Don't get me wrong, I would love to have some of those hits that they're pulling into Newfoundland. They have had some incredible, I would say exceptional drill holes coming out of the province over the past couple of years. It's just a little bit of a different style of gold. Also, in terms of exploiting this high grade zone material in particular, we have essentially perfect metallurgy. It's better than 99% recovery. The cool thing about that, and something that's lost on some people, but certainly not the engineers that look at this, is that better than 75% of that gold that was recovered came out by gravity. And as you know, and some of your viewers may not know, a gravity circuit is basically what they've used in the Yukon, in California, and the Klondike for hundreds of years to exploit gold. It's basically water and a spinning apparatus. So you're really just liberating gold with water. It's the easiest thing and the cheapest way to process gold mineralization. So that will bode quite well for the future processing of this ore.
It's very similar to the diamond industry. Dense media separation is basically using that same kind of idea. You're using the weight of the diamonds relative to the rock it's contained in to separate, and that makes for very low costs.
Absolutely. So it's without question, it's the best way to extract any mineral is just by using gravity, followed by flotation probably, and then followed by cyanide leaching. So like heap leaching is the easiest way without question. You just dump a bunch of rocks and sprinkle some cyanide on, and gold comes out. It's a very simple process, but for non-oxidized deposits in this neck of the woods, gravity is the king.
Well, let's close it off, Kelly, by talking about the financing. You guys had a good chunk of money in the bank to start with, but then you were able to attract another $43 million.
Yeah, we had some interest. One of the bankers had an institution wanted quite a big chunk, so they approached us. We basically did that overnight. From 30, we upsized the next day to 43. There is an option to upsize further, I think another 10 or 15% in that financing press release. We're scheduled to close that deal sometime next week, around the 15th or 17th, all depending on lawyers and all that fun stuff. But that will close, and Amex will be very well cashed up. All of that money is flow through, which we've done in the past as well in most of our deals. So all of that money has to be spent in the ground by year end 2023. So we will be very active as we have been. Drilling, we'll be working on the resource work. We'll be doing some sort of engineering scoping study work, doing a lot more met testing. So what the neat thing about these flow through deals means is, the neat thing about the flow through deals is that investors can expect a lot of news coming out from Amex for the foreseeable future.
And even with all the drilling you guys have done, you got low cost drilling there. You've been able to do a tremendous amount of drilling at about a $2 million spend per month. So this gives you a long runway to keep that truth machine pounding away at these various deposits.
Yeah, we're well funded for the foreseeable future. And the other neat thing too is we brought in, it's a lot of new investors, new institutions that played in this deal as well. So it's always great to have new eyeballs, new owners, and expand the registry. And another cool thing is our structure now has no more warrants. All the warrants in the company have been either exercised, which was pretty well all of it exercised. So it's just common shares, and it's clean as a whistle in that regard.
What would your final cash position be once you close this?
Anywhere from 55 to 60 million, depending on, like I said, that option to upsize. And don't, I guess you are quoting me on that, but obviously always refer to financial statements, everyone. But that's
Sure, I'm just trying to get a ballpark idea of what you're looking at here.
Well above $50 million. I would say probably above 55. And yeah, we're in a rock solid position going forward.
So let's talk a little bit about going forward. What's your sort of hit list of how you're going to attack all these various different zones? So
by far the two most important areas to me in the near term are the Denise extension that we talked about. I think that has real potential to add a lot of ounces to the system, obviously provided that we're able to successfully continue testing along strike. E2 gold zone, I think if that works out, is a game changer. I think it's essentially cuts the economics or doubles the economic value of that rock, because your underground development costs are basically cut now in half if we're able to replicate two of those units. And like I said earlier, expansion is our 2022 goal, and exploration. So we've got a number of great targets. We've got 210 zone to the north. We've got Allan, we've got the Vms zone. We've got the E3 zone. We've got some western hits that we've never followed up on. We've got some copper mineralization at depth in the Donna zone. We've got basically to infill that area we've talked about forever, you and I, Allan, in between the Gretchen and the Eastern Gold Zone. That still needs to be drilled. So the money that we raised definitely will be put to work. I'll be quite busy, but I think that there's a whole lot of fun stuff that we'll be doing. And like I said, the goal this year is expand and grow, and that's exploration. That's where that comes in. So the definition drilling is largely finished, and now we're working on growing all the systems.
And that's, you mentioned, it sounds like there's plenty of game changer potentials in there. And I would make the case that just alone on your high grade zone, you're undervalued.
Yeah, I think it's a great project. I would totally agree with you there.
All right, Kelly, I'm going to wrap it up. Why don't you hang around and we'll have a little chat at the end.
Perfect.
So folks, I think it's pretty clear that they've got a lot of high grade gold here. They've also got the potential for open pit mining at Denise. They've got, plenty of regional exploration to find more deposits of high grade gold. And then they've got this VMS story. Recently, there's been a takeover in the business of the exploration in Canada, with the Great Bear being taken out at, or in the process of being taken out at a 1.4-ish billion valuation. And I would make the case that one point I would make is that I think that this has the potential to be as significant in what they've found. But secondly, now the majors are looking for other targets for takeovers, and I would put, and I'm not just saying this off the top of my head, in my days of picking gold stocks, I've had a tremendous hit ratio with companies that have been taken over. So, I'm not just speaking off the top of my head here, but I think that this is a high on the list of gold projects in Canada that could be taken over in the near term over the next year or two. So I would expect, if that were to happen, they would be looking at a lot higher valuation than their current $277 million valuation. And they've got a lot of catalysts to lead them in the direction to answering the questions that major mining companies would be asking of a project to take it over. So I think this is a takeover of the future, and it will be at multiples of their current valuation. As always, my shows are for information purposes only. It's important for you to do your speak with your financial advisors and also do your homework. And I highly recommend you do your homework on Amex. Check out their website, check out their corporate presentations, check out their news releases, because this company does a fantastic job of representing graphically and in the data what they have, and it's quite special. So on that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.